The Whispering Shadows. The rain fell in steady sheets, tapping on the window like 1,000 fingers trying to get in. Sarah sat by the fireplace, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had moved to the old Victorian house on the outskirts of town just a week ago. It was supposed to be her fresh start, a quiet place to escape from the noise of city life, to heal from the past. But ever since that first night, things had felt off. It started with the strange creaking noises from the attic. Nothing too alarming, just the house settling, or so she thought. But as the days passed, they grew louder, more deliberate, as if someone, or something, was walking around up there. She had checked every door and window, making sure everything was locked before going to bed. Yet every morning there were new marks on the floor, scratches, scuff marks, as though someone had been pacing just outside her door. Tonight was no different. As she sat reading a book, a flicker of movement caught her eye from the corner of the room. A shadow, tall and thin, slithered across the wall. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had learned to ignore the creaks and whispers in the dark, but this felt different. She slowly got up and moved toward the source of the shadow. The hall light was off, and the only illumination was from the fireplace, casting long, twisting shadows on the walls. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as she walked toward the narrow staircase leading to the attic. A cold draft swept past her, and she shivered. Reached the top of the stairs and paused, her hand on the door to the attic. The handle was cold and unyielding, but she turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, musty space, filled with old furniture covered in sheets and forgotten relics of past lives. Then she heard it, a soft whisper. It wasn't her imagination. Voice was real, just faint enough to make her second-guess herself. It sounded like a woman's voice, low and mournful. "Help me." Her breath caught in her throat. Sound seemed to come from somewhere deep in the attic, just beyond the line of sight. Sarah stepped into the room, the beam of her flashlight cutting through the darkness, sweeping across piles of old books and boxes. She took another step, then froze again. A figure, pale and ghostly, stood in the far corner of the room, almost completely hidden by shadows. The woman's face was obscured by long, tangled hair, but Sarah could feel her eyes on her. The whisper came again. "Help!" Fear gripped her chest, but a strange impulse pushed her forward. She stepped closer, holding her breath. The woman's figure seemed to fade in and out, like a mirage, but the pleading whisper grew louder, more desperate. As Sarah reached out, her fingers brushing the woman's arm, the attic light flickered and went out. A rush of cold air filled the room and Sarah's heart stopped as she heard a harsh, guttural voice from behind her. "Leave?" She spun around, but there was nothing there. Room was empty. The whispers stopped. The air felt thick, suffocating. She turned back to the corner, but the woman was gone. Something inside Sarah snapped. She knew she wasn't alone in this house. She wasn't just hearing things. She was being watched. The shadows, the whispers, they weren't just figments of her imagination. They were real. With her pulse racing, she fled the attic and slammed the door shut. But as she reached the bottom of the stairs, she heard it again. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a knock. Slow, measured, almost deliberate. The knock came from inside the walls. Her heart beat louder in her ears as the knock came again. Each time, closer. It wasn't just the house settling anymore. It was something. Or someone. Sarah backed away from the wall, but before she could reach the door, a cold hand touched her shoulder. Chill spread through her body and she spun around. There, standing in the hallway, was the woman from the attic. Her hair was matted with something dark, almost black, and her eyes, hollow and endless, stared directly into Sarah's soul. The woman opened her mouth, but instead of a whisper, a scream tore through the house. It was deafening. The walls groaned and cracked and the lights flickered out. Darkness enveloped Sarah as the woman lunged toward her. Then everything went silent. The rain stopped. The wind ceased. The house was still. When the lights flickered back on, the hallway was empty. The air was thick with an eerie silence. Sarah stood alone, her breathing ragged, her body frozen with terror. But one thing was certain. She wasn't alone anymore, and the whispers would never stop.